In this video, the Supreme Court just cleared Texas to use its new redistricting maps, the same map a lower court tried to block for being discriminatory. But this isn't some shocking move. Texas didn't invent anything new. They used the exact same redistricting rules blue states like Maryland, Illinois, and New York have used for years. Because the key is simple. If a map is drawn for political reasons, it's legal. If it's drawn for racial reasons, it's not. And the court said Texas map fits the political category, period. So all this outrage you're seeing is not about the rules changing. It's about Texas benefiting from the same rules both parties have been playing with for decades.
Breaking news in our Law and Justice lead, and a major update from the U.S. Supreme Court on that Texas redistricting case. You'll remember Republicans in the state, in an unusual mid-decade review, redrew the maps, the congressional maps, earlier this year. Let's get right to CNN Chief Supreme Court Analyst Joan Biskupic. Joan, what is the latest news from the U.S. Supreme Court?
Very big news, Jake, both politically and legally. The Supreme Court, the conservative majority over the dissent of the three liberals, has said that Texas can use the map that it drew last summer to provide potentially 5 new districts that could flip Republican and enhance the Republican majority in the U.S. House. And what they said is that a special U.S. District Court panel that had invalidated this map, saying it was drawn on unconstitutional racial lines, that Texas had actually divided people up by race. This district court had said that, and Texas had come up here and appealed it, backed by the Trump administration. Today, the Supreme Court majority said no, that this map deserved more deference from the district court. The district court should have taken into account a presumption of legislative good faith. That's been a standard that Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Samuel Alito have been really pushing over the years, to sort of let states do what they want to do, even if there could be a cloud of racial division there. So you had the conservative majority essentially now locking in this new Texas map that you remember has triggered all this off-year redistricting throughout the country, and at the goading of President Trump to shore up his majority. Let me tell you a little bit about what the liberal dissenters said had happened here. Justice Kagan, writing on behalf of herself and Sonia Sotomayor and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, pointed to the fact that a district court had held 9 days of hearing, combed through thousands of pages of testimony about what had gone on in Texas, and this district court had also put a lot of attention on a letter from the Office of Civil Rights in the Trump administration that had pushed the Texas legislature to draw along racial lines. And the district court had found that indeed that this had been an unconstitutional racial gerrymander, that it wasn't drawn just on political lines, which, Jake, is allowed under the Constitution. You can divide people up based on their politics, but you cannot divide people up based on their race. And that's what the district court said had done there. And let me just tell you what Justice Elena Kagan said in dissent about that. What basis does the majority have to thus substitute its understanding of the direct evidence for the district courts? The short answer is it has none. So this is the end of the line for this Texas map. It can be used going forward now for the midterm elections, Jake.
All right, let's break down what you just heard, because that clip makes it sound a lot more dramatic than what it really is. And the truth is a lot simpler. The Supreme Court didn't set a new precedent today. They didn't rewrite election law. What they did was apply the rule that has been on the book for years. Point blank, period. If a map is drawn for a political advantage, it's allowed. That's the rules. If it's drawn to intentionally target a race, it's not. And like it or not, Texas argued successfully that their map was a political redraw, not a racial one. And Texas did not reinvent the wheel. Let's get that clear. Texas just used the exact same loophole Democrat-run states have used for years. Maryland sliced up districts to wipe out one of their last Republicans. Freaking Illinois drew a map that was so aggressive, partisan analysts called it the Pelosi Protection Plan. And New York pushed the pro-Democrat map so extreme, their own state court had to throw it out. In all three cases, Democrats defended their maps using the same argument Texas just used, that this isn't about race, it's about politics, which is allowed because under Rucho versus Common Cause, courts have to accept the explanation unless racial intention is overwhelmingly clear. So when you hear people saying this Texas ruling is unprecedented, extremist, or some attack on democracy, that's not accurate. The Supreme Court didn't invent anything new here. They simply applied the rule they created. If a state can frame its redistricting decisions as political, not racial, the federal courts will not intervene. That's the system. If you don't like the rules, then change them. And Texas is operating inside the exact same rules Maryland, Illinois, New York, and plenty of Democrat-run states have used for years. But of course, that's not stopping MSNBC, MS Now, whatever they want to refer to themselves as nowadays. That's not stopping them from making it about race anyway. Take a listen.
But also what they essentially said is that because Texas said, well, we drew it for partisan political reasons, not race, they're using political as the cover over race. And so if this becomes the norm, that means any state in the country, particularly states in the South with a history of discrimination, can claim that they are doing things with their state maps under the guise of partisan and political when they're really using race, and they can get away with it. And I just think that that is very dangerous.
A few things here that stand out for me. One, the Supreme Court put itself in the position of the district court. It should not have done so. It is not its role, and they basically slapped the district court, unfortunately, the way Simone just described. The other thing that I find frustrating is essentially, for me, I'm looking at the disintegration of civil rights at the hands of a party and a political philosophy that once existed within that party that elevated those civil rights. When you think about the Republican leaders who stood in the breach to get us the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, to fight with Democrats to get the civil rights passages made in the 60s, now dismantling that. And basically saying in no uncertain terms, it's okay to push black and brown people and communities of color into a corner in their representation. And that makes no sense to me at all.
Funny how he doesn't understand it. The same people shouting that the Texas map is racist, anti-democratic, or an assault on minority voters, wonder where that energy is at for California. I think we all know. Because if the system is unfair in Texas, then it's also unfair in New York, Illinois, Maryland, and yes, California too. Just be consistent, that's all. And so let's understand one thing, because you can make the argument that with certain minority groups, for example, black voters, who vote for Democrats at around a 90% clip in most elections, if you then have the legislators say, we're drawing lines to help our political party, if you're drawing those lines based off of politics, then you're probably going to draw lines that are going to look somewhat racially gerrymandered, just because of the fact you have certain groups of minorities that vote for Democrats at such a high rate. So the idea that Texas is operating in some uniquely evil way is ridiculous. They're using the same doctrine Democrat-run states rely on. The only reason this ruling suddenly becomes a civil rights crisis is because this time the political outcome didn't favor the left. The reality is the court wasn't protecting Texas Republicans. They were protecting their own rule, the one that keeps partisan gerrymandering beyond their reach, a rule Democrats depend on in their own strongholds, a rule they celebrate when it shields their maps, and a rule they now pretend is racist the moment it benefits someone else.
Win for Texas. The Supreme Court allows the Lone Star State to use the Trump-backed congressional map in its midterm elections. Governor Greg Abbott writing this: Texas is officially and legally more red. This is a victory for Texas voters, for common sense, and for the U.S. Constitution. They could get up to 5 seats in theory. Let's bring in Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Greg, did the Supreme Court make the right decision?
Oh, I think they did, Brian, because there was little credible evidence that Texas had actually redrawn their congressional map based on race, which obviously would be a civil rights violation. And the ruling is consistent with what the High Court said in 2019. We will not intervene in cases of political partisan gerrymandering, only in cases where, states have conjured up district boundaries for largely racial reasons that are discriminatory. And in fact, there was evidence that the previous map was racially motivated and that the new map corrected that constitutional defect. So, as you point out, Brian, this ruling has the potential to flip 5 Democrat-held seats in Texas to Republican next year, and it may actually clear the path for other states to do the same, blue states and red states, as long as race is not a factor.
Look, even though this ruling is a win for Republicans on paper, nobody should fool themselves into thinking this guarantees anything in 2026. Let's be clear. Yeah, the maps are drawn in Trump's favor. Yeah, that's true. Analysts say it could shift 3 to 5 seats towards the GOP. Okay, but politics don't happen in a vacuum. Maps may set the battlefield, but they don't decide the outcome. Because at the end of the day, voters don't live inside district lines. They live inside their reality. And with multiple polls showing affordability is beating every other issue by double digits right now, you got people out there who feel like they're struggling with groceries, with paying their rent. And if they feel like the country isn't going in the right direction, they're going to show it at the ballot box. Now, next year, the big, beautiful bill, the major reforms Trump pushed through actually start to take effect. Lower energy costs, regulatory rollbacks, incentives for domestic jobs, expanded drilling permits. If those changes start hitting the economy in a real way, noticeably, that'll set the stage for a completely different midterm environment. But here's the flip side. If people don't feel those improvements, and if Republicans in Congress sit on their hands because they think a favorable map and riding Trump's coattail will be enough, then the big, beautiful bill won't save them, and neither will Texas. So even if the map leans red, if people feel squeezed financially, they'll show up at the ballot box and express it. And this is where my frustration with Republicans in Congress come in. Too many of them are coasting on Trump's coattail. Too many of them act like Trump is going to carry the entire weight of the midterms on his back. And too many of them think favorable district lines erase the need to actually govern. And that right there is a losing mentality, because Trump can't fix this entire country alone. He needs Congress to actually fight for working Americans, not a Congress that stalls and does nothing. If Republicans want to win the midterms, if they want Trump to have the power to actually fix this mess, then they have to do more than some redrawing of lines. They have to govern, they have to deliver, and they have to fight, because a map can help you win a seat, but only results convince the American people to let you keep it. Now I want to hear from you. Drop your comments down below. As always, the best way you can show your support is by smashing that thumbs up. That tells me you like the video, and subscribe for more breakdowns like this. And as always, until next time.